Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a ceasefire after more than a year of fighting. So how will it work, and what does it mean for peace in the wider region? The ceasefire agreement aims to stop the hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah, hopefully permanently. It was brokered by the US and France, and they will monitor it.
Cet accord signé il y a quelques heures doit ouvrir une nouvelle page pour le Liban.
We're determined this conflict will not be just another cycle of violence.
Hezbollah's forces would leave their positions in southern Lebanon and retreat north of the Litani River, around 30 kilometers, 20 miles north of the border with Israel. In return, Israel will not carry out any military offensive against targets in Lebanon, whether on land, in the air, or at sea. The ceasefire is essentially based on UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended a war between the two countries in 2006. That war killed an estimated 1,200 people in Lebanon, most of them civilians, and 160 in Israel, mostly soldiers. The resolution stipulated the only armed groups in the area south of Lebanon's Litani River should be the Lebanese army and UN peacekeepers. Israel must keep to its side of the border. This is the blue line that was set by the UN in 2000 after the end of Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon, and now serves as a de facto border between the two countries. But Resolution 1701 was never fully implemented by either Israel or Hezbollah. Hezbollah violated it when they built a vast underground infrastructure in the area, strengthening their forces. Meanwhile, Israel gathered intelligence, conducted nearly daily overflights in Lebanon. Despite that, the 2006 agreement held for nearly 2 decades. But it ended when Hezbollah attacked Israel on the 8th of October 2023. In solidarity, it claimed, with its ally, the Palestinian militant group Hamas, who'd launched a terror attack on Israel the day earlier. The fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has killed more than 3,500 Lebanese so far, and around 75 Israeli civilians. This has been Lebanon's deadliest conflict in decades. This new deal should provide civilians with respite from the fighting and allow for more than 1 million people displaced across Lebanon and more than 60,000 people displaced from northern Israel to eventually return to their homes. But the ceasefire doesn't detail what might happen after the initial 60-day truce period ends. Before the cabinet vote, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu laid out his reasons for supporting the ceasefire.
חיסלנו את נסראללה, זה הציר של הציר. חיסלנו את כל בכירי הארגון. השמדנו את מרבית הטילים והרקטות שלו. חיסלנו אלפי מחבלים. והשמדנו את תשתיות התת-קרקע והטרור שסמוכות לגבולנו. אם חיזבאללה יפר את ההסכם וינסה להתחמש, אנחנו נתקוף. אם הוא ינסה לחדש תשתיות טרור בסמוך לגבול, אנחנו נתקוף.
What is left of Hezbollah and another terrorist organization will not be allowed, I emphasize, will not be allowed to threaten the security of Israel again.
A spokesperson for Hezbollah said that the group will wait to see if there is a match between what we stated and what was agreed upon by the Lebanese officials. We want an end to the aggression, of course, but not at the expense of the sovereignty of the state of Lebanon.
L'accord doit là aussi ouvrir la voie à un cessez-le-feu trop longtemps attendu face aux souffrances sans commune mesure de la population de Gaza.
Until now, Hezbollah has insisted that it would only stop its attacks on Israel when Israel would agree to end its war in Gaza. That condition has been dropped, an indication perhaps of how weak Hezbollah's position has become after most of its leadership was killed. The US now believes this agreement between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon could force an isolated Hamas to accept a ceasefire in Gaza.
In terms of Gaza itself, I also think this can have a significant impact. Why is that? Because one of the things that Hamas has sought from day one is to get others in on the fight, to create multiple fronts, to make sure that Israel was having to fight in a whole series of different places. Now, if it sees that the cavalry is not on the way, that may incentivize it to do what it needs to do to end this conflict.
And so now Hamas has a choice to make. Their only way out is to release the hostages, including American citizens, which they hold. In the process, bring an end to the fighting, which would make possible a surge of humanitarian relief.
But the US vetoed another UN Security Council resolution that called for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, arguing that it didn't sufficiently link the ceasefire to the immediate release of the hostages in the territory. In the past year alone, Washington has vetoed 4 Security Council resolutions calling for a Gaza ceasefire. Hamas has consistently demanded a lasting truce and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza's territory. Reacting to the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire, Hamas official Sami Abu Zuri said Hamas appreciates the right of Lebanon and Hezbollah to reach an agreement that protects the people of Lebanon, and we hope that this agreement will pave the way to reaching an agreement that ends the war of genocide against our people in Gaza. Efforts to broker a lasting ceasefire to the 14-month war in Gaza have so far failed, with Israel and Hamas rejecting multiple proposals. The only time fighting was paused was during a week-long truce in late November 2023.
والله وقف اطلاق النار في لبنان هو يعني وقف اطلاق نار يعني ايجابي بالنسبه للشعب اللبناني وللحكومه اللبنانيه كويس، واحنا نتمنى انه يصير عندنا وقف اطلاق النار حتى شعبنا يقدر يلقط انفاسه.
هم يعملوا وقف اطلاق نار في مكان ويخلوا المكان الثاني، يعني يرحموا الاطفال، يرحموا الشيوخ، يرحموا النساء. احنا قاعدين في خيم وفصل شتاء وكل الناس بتغرق.
في هذه الحربين بنتنياهو وهو من يقرر ذلك. أنا أعتقد أن نتنياهو غير ذاهب لإيقاف الحرب في غزة مهما كلف الأمر ومهما قدمت المقاومة من تنازلات. هو لا يريد وقف إطلاق النار، هو يريد إبادة شعب غزة واحتلال أراضي من غزة.
Hezbollah's retreat from southern Lebanon is a setback for Iran, which has used the group as a proxy. Iran sends weapons to Hezbollah through Syria and Iraq. The terms of the ceasefire raise the possibility that Israel could conduct more airstrikes inside Syria to ensure weapons from Iran don't reach Hezbollah. Not long after the ceasefire announcement, but before it was implemented, Israel targeted sites on Lebanon's northern border with Syria for the first time. US President Joe Biden, whose term in office is coming to an end, also recommitted to a legacy-defining historic normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's also something the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump is keen to keep pursuing. The ceasefire doesn't give specific details on logistics or a time frame for when Israel would withdraw its troops from southern Lebanon, or when Hezbollah will move its forces and heavy weapons north above the Litani River. It is for this reason that much could still go wrong.